So, Karen, one of the things that one of my real topics that I love to talk about is resilience. And a lot of different people have very, very different views on what that means and if that is something that actually people need to have, or how it's built, or, those sorts of big questions. And I was very, very intrigued with your passion around compassion, how you view resilience and how you think it's built and why you think it's important. And do you actually feel that's always incumbent on the individual to become resilient, or actually is there another way? Could the world be kinder to ensure that people don't have to constantly handle all of life's knocks all the time? So that's the sort of question that I wanted to
I mean, in an ideal world, the world is kinder and there are no deaths and there are no tragedies and life is easy. But the world we live in doesn't necessarily reflect that.
No.
So like you, I am keen on developing resilience. And for myself, I would have put my hand up and would have said I would have historically been someone that was quite sensitive and would be perhaps historically easily knocked by the trials and tribulations of life. However, since I have been practicing in a quite a profound way compassion in its different forms, what that has enabled me to do is to have the courage, if you like, to go deeply into any or all emotions, particularly grief, sadness, if you like, fear, and go as deep as I need to in those emotions, and to bring my compassionate self to any particular suffering that might be going on for me at that point in time. And that has meant that it's a positive cycle. So the more that I have the courage to go into my emotions and bring my compassionate self to the particular suffering that I'm experiencing, the more my resilience grows, the more I'm able to be compassionately with those experiences within myself, and also to support my clients and others in my life with any difficult experiences that they have. So my experience is it grows through practice, and it allows me to be more at peace and more accepting of the challenges that I know are part of the human condition. Mm-hmm. What's your take on this?
I agree with all of that. I think for me, I suppose, and I look at it from two angles, really. I think kind of from an educational and parental point of view when people are quite young, and from a workplace scenario. And I suppose one of the things that I've found is there is an element of not allowing children at school to necessarily build some of those skills that actually they will need in future life. So what I mean by that is, if I look at my son, who's 14 now, he can tell me all about all these different clouds in the sky and what they're called and all this amazing factual stuff that he can throw at me. Given he's nearly 15 now, there has been nothing at school talking about how you budget, how you make decisions, what's a sensible way to weigh something up before you decide what to do, anything around finances, anything around looking after yourself, not really much about health, etc., etc. And you just wonder whether you are coming into the world of work, which is still often, we're at this slightly strange generational time at the moment. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got 40, 50-year-olds who are still quite hardcore, and in my day when I started I did 15-hour days and all that sort of mentality. You have this middle management thing that's kind of stuck in the middle somewhere, and you have this younger generation, you have a very, very different view on life. And, you know, certainly when I started work, what resilience really meant was when people said resilient, what they meant was you did something wrong at work, or something went wrong at work, or whatever happened, and you got a bit of a kicking from your boss and you got torn a strip off. And actually resilience means you can handle that, bounce back and get on with it. Now, you could argue that's what resilience means, but the bit that's missing in my mind is, have you dealt with that? So if you imagine an egg, and you got this hard shell, and you get knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked, eventually that cracks. If each time you're knocked, you deal with that, and you deal with that process, and you learn from that, I think you strengthen that shell. But I think what tends to happen, and I've seen it time and time again, really talented people who've just got kicked and kicked and kicked and just fallen apart eventually. That's not resilience. That to me starts to go, well, actually, is it about resilience for the individual, or actually should we be looking at people being more compassionate and kinder to people, and actually realizing, you know what, is there any benefit in absolutely rollicking someone who's made a mistake, or is that an opportunity to help them learn? And so that's my question, I suppose.
Yeah, and a great leader, in my view, would be giving feedback in a way that provides an opportunity to learn and supports the team member to actually take on board that feedback and make a change. So it's not necessarily, I mean, it really wouldn't be about knocking somebody. That normally wouldn't be a compassionate approach. However, some individuals may be quite sensitive to feedback, and they may benefit through developing their ability to receive feedback and use it as something that will help them develop in their role. So it's, if you like, I'm going to use an odd expression, it's a dance between the team member who is receiving feedback and the skill of the leader who is giving feedback. But ultimately, if both can support the team member to develop that resilience so they can receive feedback without crumbling, because ultimately that's what we need to do in the workplace and in life, to receive feedback and go, this is useful, how can I have this serve me, where can I take it forward? I'm welcoming this feedback, rather than putting up a bit of a barrier and a brick wall and saying, I'm not receiving this, I'm too sensitive, I can't handle it. So that's really interesting to speak about this, Mark, and I'm looking forward to whatever we talk about next.
I'm sure there'll be plenty more topics, but yes, thank you, brilliant, good to talk.
Thank you.